In a distant future, humanity had spread far beyond Earth. People lived not only on their home planet, but also on colonies scattered across the stars. These colonies were like small cities floating in space, filled with humans and aliens working side by side. Among these people was Ethan Lewis, a man known for his calm nature and sharp mind. He worked as a diplomat, speaking for humanity in meetings with other species. Alongside him was Olivia Carter, a curious biologist who studied how different life forms interacted and evolved together. The Galactic Council was the group that kept peace among all the planets and species. It was made up of representatives from many races, including humans. They met regularly on Nexus 7, a massive station orbiting a distant star. This station was like a giant hub where decisions about trade, resources, and laws were made. It was here that tensions between humans and the insect-like Vraxians began to rise. Both groups wanted control over a belt of asteroids rich in valuable minerals. The Vraxians claimed it was theirs because they discovered it first, while humans argued they needed it more to support their growing population. Ethan often attended these meetings, trying to find common ground between the two sides. He knew that keeping the peace was important, but he could feel anger simmering beneath the surface. Some humans believed they should fight for what they wanted instead of negotiating. Back on Earth and the colonies, protests were starting to break out. People shouted slogans, demanding that humanity focus on its own needs rather than sharing with others. One of the loudest voices belonged to Jason Meyer, a passionate activist who hated the idea of taking orders from alien leaders. He told crowds that humans were being treated unfairly and deserved better. While Ethan dealt with politics, Olivia spent her days studying samples brought back from various worlds. She noticed something strange. Certain genetic patterns in plants and animals seemed unnatural, as if someone had tampered with them. At first, she thought it might be a coincidence, but the more she looked, the clearer it became. Someone, or something, was altering the biology of other species. This discovery worried her deeply. If word got out, it could spark fear and lead to even more conflict. One evening after a long day at the lab, Olivia decided to share her findings with Ethan. They met in a quiet corner of Nexus 7, away from prying eyes. "Ethan," she said softly, "I think there's more going on than we realize. Someone is messing with the DNA of other creatures. I don't know why yet, but it's dangerous." Ethan listened carefully, his brow furrowed. He trusted Olivia's judgment and knew this wasn't something they could ignore. Together, they agreed to keep digging quietly, hoping to uncover the truth without causing panic. Back on Earth, things were getting worse. Protests turned into riots, and some radical groups began stockpiling weapons. Jason Meyer's speeches grew louder and angrier, drawing bigger crowds every day. Many people admired his boldness, even though his ideas scared others. Ethan watched these events unfold with a heavy heart. He knew that patience and understanding were slipping away, replaced by anger and distrust. Humanity's famous tolerance, once seen as its greatest strength, was fading fast. As days passed, whispers of rebellion reached Nexus 7. Diplomats from other species started treating humans with suspicion. Kayla Torres, a counselor representing a reptilian race, approached Ethan during a break in one of the meetings. Her voice was calm but firm. "You need to do something," she said. "If your people continue down this path, it won't end well, for anyone." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He didn't have all the answers, but he knew one thing for sure. If humanity lost its ability to coexist peacefully, the consequences would be disastrous. And so, as tensions continued to rise, Ethan and Olivia found themselves caught in the middle of a storm. They weren't sure how long they could hold everything together, or whether their efforts would make any difference. But they couldn't give up, not when so much depended on finding a way forward. Jason Meyer's voice echoed through the crowded square on one of the human colonies. His words were sharp and full of fire, urging people to stand up for themselves. "We don't need them," he shouted, pointing toward the holographic images of alien leaders displayed on a large screen behind him. They take our resources, they mock our culture, and they treat us like we're less than them. Is that what we deserve? No. We are humans, and we will fight for what is ours. The crowd roared in agreement, their cheers filling the air. Ethan Lewis watched the broadcast from his quarters aboard Nexus 7. He sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. Jason's message was spreading quickly, and it was gaining traction not just among ordinary citizens, but also within some factions of Earth's government. Leaders who once supported cooperation with other species were now wavering, afraid to oppose the growing wave of anger. Ethan knew this wasn't just about resources anymore. It had become something deeper, a clash of identities, a struggle over whose values would shape the future. On another part of the station, Olivia Carter sat at her desk, staring at data streams scrolling across her monitor. She had spent days analyzing samples collected from various planets. What she found disturbed her even more than before. The unnatural genetic changes she'd noticed earlier weren't random. They followed specific patterns, almost like someone was experimenting on different species. Whoever was doing this wasn't just altering biology. They were trying to control evolution itself. Olivia decided to share her findings with Kayla Torres, the reptilian counselor who had spoken to Ethan earlier. Though Kayla came from a species often viewed with distrust by humans, Olivia trusted her judgment. Over tea in a quiet lounge, Olivia explained everything she had discovered. Kayla listened intently, her slit-like eyes narrowing as she processed the information. When Olivia finished, Kayla leaned forward slightly. "This isn't just dangerous," she said. "It's catastrophic. If others find out about this, they'll think your kind is behind it. And if they do," she trailed off, letting the implications hang in the air. Back on Earth, protests turned violent. Angry mobs attacked buildings housing alien diplomats, smashing windows and setting fires. Police tried to restore order, but the chaos only grew worse. In response, several alien species issued formal complaints to the Galactic Council, demanding action against humanity. Some even threatened to cut off trade or withdraw from agreements altogether. The fragile peace that had held for decades was beginning to crack. Ethan felt the pressure mounting. During a heated session of the Council, representatives from the Vraxians accused humans of secretly arming rebels responsible for recent attacks on neutral trade hubs. Ethan denied the accusations, but his words carried little weight. Trust between humans and other species was fading fast. Even moderate voices within the Council began to question whether humanity could still be trusted. Jason Meyer, meanwhile, continued to gain power. With support from shadowy figures funding his movement, he established fortified bases on remote colonies. These outposts became centers of resistance, where weapons and supplies flowed freely. Rumors spread that Jason planned to declare independence from the Galactic Council entirely, creating a purely human alliance. If that happened, war seemed inevitable. One evening, Ethan met privately with Olivia. They sat together in a dimly lit observation deck, looking out at the endless expanse of stars. "We're running out of time," Ethan said quietly. "If we don't figure out who's really behind all this, humanity might lose everything." Olivia nodded, her expression grim. "And we can't do it alone," she added. "We need help, from anyone willing to listen." The next day, Ethan approached Kayla again. He proposed forming a small coalition of trusted individuals from multiple species to investigate the conspiracy. Kayla agreed, recognizing the urgency of the situation. Together, they recruited two others, Rachel Morgan, a young human pilot known for her bravery, and Liren Voss, an avian diplomat skilled in negotiation. Though hesitant at first, both agreed to join the cause. As the group began their work, tensions across the galaxy reached a boiling point. Another attack occurred, this time targeting a major Vraxian colony. Dozens of lives were lost, and the Vraxians vowed revenge. Humanity's role in the tragedy remained unclear, but suspicion fell heavily on Jason's followers. Fear and hatred spread like wildfire, consuming entire systems. For the first time in history, it seemed possible that humanity might lose its place among the stars, not because of external enemies, but because of divisions within itself. The attack on the Vraxian colony sent shockwaves through the galaxy. The once neutral trade hub, a place where species from all corners of the universe came to exchange goods and ideas, was now a scene of devastation. Ships lay in ruins, structures were reduced to rubble, and dozens of lives, both Vraxian and others, were lost. Evidence pointed to human extremists linked to Jason Meyer's movement. Though Ethan Lewis publicly condemned the violence, the damage was done. Trust between humans and other species crumbled almost overnight. The Vraxians didn't wait long to respond. In retaliation, they launched an assault on a human mining outpost near the contested asteroid belt. The strike was swift and brutal, leaving hundreds dead and crippling the facility. What followed was a deadly cycle of vengeance. Each attack fueled more anger, each loss sparked another act of retribution. Colonies that had once thrived as melting pots of culture and cooperation became battlegrounds. Fear spread faster than anyone could have imagined, turning neighbors into enemies. Jason Meyer wasted no time capitalizing on the chaos. He appeared on broadcasts across human territories, his face filled with fury but also triumph. "This is what happens when we let them push us around," he declared. "They see us as weak, as inferior, but we won't bow down anymore. We will fight for our survival, for our dignity." His words resonated deeply with those who felt abandoned by the Galactic Council. More people flocked to his cause, swelling the ranks of his followers. With backing from shadowy benefactors supplying advanced weapons, Jason's forces grew stronger every day. Ethan struggled to keep diplomacy alive, but it felt like trying to hold back a tidal wave. During an emergency session of the Galactic Council, tempers flared. Alien representatives demanded harsh sanctions against humanity, accusing them of harboring terrorists. Some even called for complete isolation, cutting off all ties with human colonies. Ethan argued passionately for restraint, pleading with the Council to recognize that not all humans supported Jason's actions. But his pleas fell on deaf ears. Even former allies seemed unwilling to listen. Kayla Torres pulled Ethan aside after the meeting. Her expression was grave. "You need to act fast," she said. "If you don't stop this madness soon, there won't be anything left to save." Ethan nodded, knowing she was right. But how could he fix something so broken? When he returned to Earth seeking support, he found the global leadership paralyzed by division. Some leaders sided with Jason, seeing the conflict as an opportunity to reclaim dominance over alien-controlled regions. Others urged caution, warning of total annihilation if war escalated further. No one could agree on a path forward. Meanwhile, Olivia Carter worked tirelessly in her lab, piecing together clues about the genetic manipulation she had uncovered. She shared her findings with Rachel Morgan, the young pilot who had joined their coalition. Together, they identified traces of synthetic compounds in samples taken from multiple species. These compounds weren't natural. They were engineered. Someone high up in the Galactic Council, or perhaps outside it entirely, was orchestrating events to destabilize alliances and provoke conflict. Rachel suggested smuggling the evidence off Nexus 7 to share with neutral factions. It was risky, but they had no choice. If the truth came out, it might expose the real architects of the war and force people to confront the lies driving them apart. Ethan agreed, though the weight of responsibility pressed heavily on him. As he prepared to leave for Earth again, he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. Back on the colonies, Jason tightened his grip. He declared martial law in areas under his control, silencing dissent and rallying supporters with promises of victory. Propaganda flooded communication channels, painting aliens as monsters bent on destroying humanity. Those who dared question him were branded traitors. Even families split apart, torn between loyalty to their own kind and hope for peace. Amidst the growing darkness, small acts of courage began to shine. Rachel and Liren Voss, The avian diplomat risked their lives to gather intelligence and build connections with moderates willing to resist Jason's influence. Though outnumbered and outgunned, they refused to give up. Humanity stood at a crossroads, teetering between redemption and ruin, and everyone knew the next move would decide the fate of countless worlds. The galaxy was falling apart, piece by piece. War raged across star systems as humanity and alien species clashed in a brutal cycle of vengeance. Jason Meyer's forces had grown stronger, armed with advanced weapons no one could explain. His message of human supremacy spread like wildfire, uniting colonies under his banner. On Earth, protests turned into riots, and governments fractured as leaders argued over whether to support Jason or oppose him. The fragile web of alliances that had held the galaxy together for decades was unraveling. Ethan Lewis watched it all from Nexus 7, feeling powerless. He tried to rally moderates within the Galactic Council, but fear ruled the room. Alien delegates spoke openly about cutting ties with humans entirely. Some even suggested isolating Earth and its colonies, leaving them to fend for themselves. Ethan pleaded with them to see reason, to understand that not all humans were responsible for the violence. But his words fell flat. Trust between species had been shattered, replaced by suspicion and hate. Meanwhile, Olivia Carter worked tirelessly in her lab, analyzing samples and piecing together clues about the genetic manipulation she had uncovered. She shared her findings with Rachel Morgan, who helped smuggle critical evidence off Nexus 7. Together, they hoped to expose the truth that someone high up, perhaps even within the Council itself, was manipulating events to create chaos. If they could prove it, maybe they could stop the war before it destroyed everything. But getting the evidence out wasn't easy. Jason's followers had infiltrated parts of Nexus 7, watching for any sign of betrayal. One night, as Olivia and Rachel prepared to transfer data onto a secure drive, alarms blared through the station. Someone had discovered their plan. Armed guards stormed the lab, forcing them to flee through maintenance tunnels. They barely escaped, hearts pounding, clutching the precious information that might save billions of lives. Back on Earth, Jason tightened his grip on power. He declared himself the leader of a new human alliance, free from alien influence. His speeches grew more radical, painting aliens as monsters intent on wiping out humanity. Colonies under his control became fortresses, cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Families split apart as some joined his cause while others resisted. Even those who once doubted him now feared speaking out, knowing the consequences would be severe. Amidst the chaos, Kayla Torres reached out to Ethan. "We can't wait any longer," she said urgently. "If we don't act now, there won't be anything left to save." Ethan agreed. He knew they needed to take drastic measures. With help from Rachel and Liren Voss, they devised a risky plan. Broadcast the evidence of the conspiracy directly to every corner of inhabited space. It was dangerous. Jason's operatives would surely try to stop them, but it was their only chance. As they prepared for the mission, Ethan and Olivia found themselves targeted. Assassins sent by Jason's regime ambushed them in a crowded market on Nexus 7. A fierce fight broke out, drawing attention from passersby. Ethan shielded Olivia as they fought back, narrowly escaping with their lives. The attack left them shaken but more determined than ever. They couldn't let fear win. Rachel took charge of smuggling the data aboard a stolen freighter. Piloting through hostile territory, she faced constant danger. Enemy ships chased her, firing relentlessly. Her heart raced as she dodged blasts, weaving through asteroid fields to lose her pursuers. Finally, after hours of tension, she reached a safe zone where neutral factions awaited her arrival. When the evidence was finally broadcast, the galaxy erupted in shock. Billions watched as proof emerged of secret experiments altering species biology and fueling the conflict. The revelation forced everyone to confront the lies driving the war. Public opinion shifted dramatically, turning against Jason and his puppet masters. Though the damage was immense, hope flickered back to life. For Ethan and Olivia, the road ahead remained uncertain. Humanity had crossed a line it might never fully recover from. But amidst the ruins of trust and tolerance, small acts of courage began to rebuild what was lost. The galaxy wasn't safe yet, but at least it had a chance. The war had changed everything. Entire star systems lay in ruins, their once thriving colonies now silent graves. Humanity, once proud of its ability to adapt and cooperate, was fractured beyond recognition. On Earth, cities were divided by walls, some supporting Jason Meyer's radical vision, while others clung to the hope of peace. Resources dwindled as trade routes collapsed, leaving millions hungry and desperate. The dreams of unity that had inspired generations were replaced by fear, anger, and mistrust. Jason Meyer stood at the center of it all, a man who had become both hero and villain. To his followers, he was a savior, a leader brave enough to stand against alien domination. To his enemies, he was a monster responsible for countless deaths and endless suffering. His speeches grew louder, more hateful, painting aliens not just as rivals but as monsters bent on humanity's destruction. He promised victory, but the cost was steep. Humanity's soul seemed to slip further away with each passing day. Ethan Lewis and Olivia Carter found themselves hunted. After narrowly escaping assassination attempts, they went into hiding, moving from one safe house to another. They knew their time was running out. Jason's operatives were everywhere, searching for them. Yet even in hiding, they refused to give up. With help from Kayla Torres and Rachel Morgan, they continued spreading the truth about the conspiracy. They sent encrypted messages to anyone willing to listen, urging people to see past the lies fueling the war. Their efforts sparked small acts of resistance. Rachel Morgan became a symbol of hope, her bravery inspiring others to rise against Jason's regime. She led daring missions to sabotage supply lines and expose propaganda. In one operation, she infiltrated a heavily guarded facility where Jason stored stolen alien technology. Though outnumbered, her team managed to destroy key equipment, dealing a blow to his forces. These victories were small, but they mattered. They reminded people that not all humans had given up on peace. Even among Jason's supporters, doubts began to surface. Some noticed inconsistencies in his stories, wondering why the war dragged on without clear progress. Others saw the toll it took on their families and communities. A few defected, risking their lives to share information with Ethan and Olivia. One former follower revealed details about Jason's secret benefactors, powerful figures within the Galactic Council pulling strings from the shadows. This confirmed what Olivia had suspected all along. The war wasn't just about resources or pride. It was part of a larger scheme to control the galaxy. Kayla Torres played a crucial role in rallying neutral factions. As a counselor representing a reptilian species, she faced suspicion from both sides. But she persisted, organizing secret meetings to unite moderates from different races. Together, they formed a coalition committed to ending the conflict. Their goal was simple: bring the conspirators to justice and rebuild trust between species. It was a daunting task, but they believed it was possible. Ethan and Olivia endured unimaginable hardships during this time. Captured by Jason's forces, they were interrogated and tortured, their captors demanding answers about the evidence they had uncovered. But they refused to break. Even in pain, they held on to hope, knowing their sacrifice could save billions. Their resilience inspired those around them, including some of their guards, who quietly questioned whether they were truly fighting for the right cause. As weeks turned into months, cracks began to form in Jason's empire. Defections increased, supplies dwindled, and morale plummeted. His grip on power weakened, though he clung to it fiercely. Meanwhile, the coalition gained strength, drawing support from unexpected places. Former enemies set aside old grudges, united by a common purpose. For the first time since the war began, there was a glimmer of light in the darkness. Though battered and scarred, humanity started to remember who it once was, a species capable of compassion, curiosity, and cooperation. The road ahead would be long and difficult, But the seeds of redemption had been planted, and in the hearts of those still fighting for peace, there burned a quiet determination to ensure that humanity never lost its way again. The final battle unfolded at Nexus 7, the orbital station that had once symbolized peace and cooperation. Now, it was a battleground, its corridors filled with smoke and the echoes of gunfire. Forces loyal to Jason Meyer fought fiercely to take control of the station, seeing it as the key to dominating the galaxy. On the other side stood a fragile coalition led by Rachel Morgan, Calatoris, and surviving moderates from both human and alien factions. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they fought with something stronger than weapons: hope. Ethan Lewis and Olivia Carter remained in captivity, held in a secure cell deep within the station. Despite their injuries, they refused to give up. Using scraps of metal and wires salvaged from their surroundings, they worked tirelessly to pick the lock on their cell door. It was slow, painstaking work, but they knew time was running out. If Jason's forces secured Nexus 7, there would be no turning back. The galaxy would plunge into an era of tyranny and endless war. Outside their cell, chaos reigned. Rachel piloted a stolen transport ship through enemy fire, dodging blasts as she delivered reinforcements to the Coalition's front lines. Her bravery inspired those around her, rallying even the most hesitant fighters to join the cause. "This isn't just about us," she shouted over the comms. "It's about every species, every life that deserves a chance at peace." Her words echoed in the hearts of those who heard them, giving them strength to push forward despite the odds. Kayla Torres coordinated the defense, her sharp mind strategizing every move. She knew Nexus 7's layout better than anyone, using its labyrinthine corridors to their advantage. Ambushes were set, traps were laid, and Jason's forces found themselves struggling to maintain their grip. Yet for every step forward the Coalition made, Jason's followers pushed back with brutal force. The cost was high, lives were lost, and parts of the station were left in ruins. But the fight continued. Back in the cell, Ethan and Olivia finally broke free. Exhausted but determined, they moved cautiously through the station, avoiding patrols as they searched for a way to broadcast their evidence to the entire galaxy. They knew this was their last chance to expose the truth and end the war. Along the way, they encountered a group of defectors, former supporters of Jason who had grown disillusioned with his lies. These defectors offered their help, guiding Ethan and Olivia to a secure communications hub. As they reached the hub, the sounds of battle grew louder. Explosions shook the station, and the air was thick with tension. Ethan and Olivia worked quickly, uploading the data onto the network. The process took agonizing minutes, each second feeling like an eternity. Just as they finished, Jason's forces stormed the room. A fierce firefight erupted, but the defectors held them off long enough for Ethan and Olivia to send the transmission. The moment the evidence hit the airwaves, the galaxy stopped. Billions watched as irrefutable proof revealed the conspiracy behind the war, the secret experiments, the manipulation of species, the hidden hands pulling the strings. The revelation shocked everyone, from the highest leaders to the lowest soldiers. Alien species that had once viewed humans as enemies now saw them as victims of the same corruption. Even some of Jason's loyalists turned against him, realizing they had been used as pawns. Jason, cornered and desperate, tried to flee. But Rachel intercepted him, confronting him in a tense standoff. "It's over," she said firmly, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. For a moment, Jason hesitated, then raised his weapon. Before he could act, one of his own lieutenants shot him, ending his reign of terror. With Jason gone, the Coalition began restoring order. Survivors emerged from hiding, piecing together what remained of their shattered worlds. Ethan and Olivia, though battered and weary, looked out at the stars from Nexus 7's observation deck. The road ahead would be long, but for the first time in years, there was hope. Humanity had faced its darkest hour and chosen redemption. The galaxy began to heal, slowly and painfully. The war had left deep scars, Entire colonies destroyed, families torn apart, and trust shattered between species. But amidst the ruins, small acts of kindness sparked a fragile hope. Survivors worked together to rebuild, sharing resources and knowledge. Humans and aliens who had once fought as enemies now stood side by side, clearing debris and tending to the wounded. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Ethan Lewis watched these efforts from Nexus 7, his heart heavy with the weight of everything that had been lost. He thought about the lives sacrificed, the choices made in desperation, and the moments when humanity had seemed on the brink of collapse. Yet he also saw resilience. People were finding ways to move forward, even if it meant starting over from nothing. "This is what we do," he told Olivia one evening as they looked out at the stars. "We fall, and then we rise again." Olivia nodded, her eyes reflecting both sadness and determination. She had spent weeks helping treat survivors, using her skills as a biologist to aid those affected by the war. Many carried wounds not just on their bodies but in their minds. Some struggled with guilt for actions taken during the conflict, while others mourned loved ones they would never see again. Olivia listened to their stories, offering comfort where she could. She knew healing wouldn't happen overnight, but every conversation mattered. Each shared moment brought them closer to rebuilding what had been broken. Rachel Morgan became a beacon of hope across the galaxy. Her bravery during the final battle inspired countless others to join the effort to restore peace. She traveled between colonies, speaking to crowds about the importance of unity and forgiveness. "We can't change the past," she often said, "but we can choose how we move forward. Let's build something better, not just for ourselves, but for everyone." Her words resonated deeply, especially among younger generations eager to leave the horrors of war behind. Kayla Torres played a key role in holding the coalition together. As tensions flared between factions still wary of each other, she reminded everyone of the cost of division. "Hatred almost destroyed us," she told a group of leaders during a meeting. "If we let it take root again, we'll lose everything we fought so hard to save." Her calm wisdom helped bridge gaps, fostering dialogue where anger might have ruled before. Jason Meyer's downfall served as a cautionary tale. Recordings of his speeches and evidence of his crimes were preserved, not to celebrate his defeat, but to remind future generations of the dangers of extremism. Schools began teaching lessons about the war, focusing not just on its causes, but on the courage of those who resisted hatred. Humanity learned painful truths about itself, but it also discovered strength in its ability to change. As months passed, new alliances formed. Trade routes reopened, connecting worlds that had been isolated for years. Scientists like Olivia collaborated with alien researchers, studying ways to prevent similar conflicts in the future. Artists created works honoring the sacrifices made during the war, ensuring that no one forgot the price of peace. Ethan reflected on how far they had come. Humanity had faced its darkest hour, the moment when tolerance gave way to fear and anger. But in losing it, they had found something greater: the will to rebuild, to listen, and to grow. They weren't the same species they had been before the war, and perhaps that was a good thing. In the end, the galaxy remembered. No species would ever forget the moment when humans finally lost their tolerance and found their way back.